All right. So normally we don't share, well, in the past we haven't shared these Yappy Hour meetings, but we've got a whole bunch of changes that we're announcing today. And part of that is probably going to mean that we're recording in the future. So, in the past, we kind of instituted these Yappy Hours as a way to allow for more continual meetups for all of the canine conservationist students, particularly for the students, because Patreon, like within the Patreon format, you get to meet up once a month. But the students, we felt bad that either people who are taking a self-study or people who maybe have graduated, like they're just not getting anything ongoing. And we also felt like there was this need for more unstructured meetings, like more ability to just kind of talk about whatever needed to be talked about, or sometimes stuff that maybe isn't dog training related. So, grants or project proposals or odor storage, some of those sorts of things that don't quite fit into that group coaching call format that we have for Patreon. So that's where these Yappy Hours came in. But I think we have kind of struggled with keeping them consistent, partially because I think with the Yappy Hour format, we went so unstructured that, sometimes we only had like 2 or 3 people show up. And if we didn't have any given topic kind of prepared, then it just kind of turned into social hour. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we wanted to figure out something else. So with the announcement of the Conservation Dog Alliance, one of the things that's happening is, so the Conservation Dog Alliance and Canine Conservationists are 2 separate entities. Rachel and Heather and I are all part of the founding membership of the Conservation Dog Alliance, but it is not Canine Conservationists. But what we are doing is Canine Conservationists Facebook group and WhatsApp group, as well as these Yappy Hours, are being absorbed into the Conservation Dog Alliance, because we think that actually kind of serves everyone better by making it a bigger tent and allowing more people to come into, again, both those social groups and these Yappy Hours. And with that, what we're trying to do is take these Yappy Hours and turn them into what we're calling SkillShares. So I'm building this off of a model that is how my lab at Oregon State University runs our weekly lab meetings. So what we do within our lab meetings at OSU is that at the start of every term, people sign up for a week to say that they'll host a lab meeting. And then they also will pick a topic. So sometimes that means that they're choosing a paper that they really need to read for their thesis, but they want to be able to chew over and discuss with someone else, with the rest of the lab. It also could be that they're doing more of a skill share. So we've had like a postdoc will come in and do a GIS mapping workshop where they're teaching everyone else how to do something. We've done like hackathons with coding stuff, which obviously, like, not obviously, I guess, but some of us are more useful and more engaged with those than others. We've done kind of a wide variety of those. We've also just kind of come in and done a topic of, like, we did a lab meeting discussing like different ways of determining the quantity of a prey species within a scat, because there's a bunch of different methods for that. And we just had an hour-long discussion of those pros and cons of those methods. So going forward with these skill shares, we're going to have 2 a month. So I think everyone on this call is in North America. There's going to be one that is in the evening for us, so this time slot, and then there's one that would be in the morning for us. That morning call, if you're on the East Coast, is going to be during normal business hours, going to be pretty cozy for you. East Coasters, you can pick between the 2. It may be better for you to go with that one. West Coasters, this call is really for us because that other call is going to be, I believe, at 7 a.m. for us, which is, technically doable. If that was our only call, I'm sure some of us would make it work, but it's not ideal. But this call, this time, so it's 4 o'clock here in Alaska right now, so I think 3 o'clock Pacific. It's really late for Europe and Africa. Oh, yeah, sorry, wrong way. Yeah, 5 o'clock Pacific. So it's really, really late for Europe and Africa, particularly the further east you get into Europe and Africa. So like Kenya or, Sweden, those guys, like it's just not really a doable time for them. So we now have 2, which again, we're hoping we're going to be able to sustain because we're bringing in the Conservation Dog Alliance and like broadening the appeal of this. So hopefully some of you saw on Facebook that I shared what we're trying to do now, a 3-month out visual calendar of meetings so that you can see what's happening. And what we're requesting that people will do is sign up to host a Skillshare. So that might be that you feel like you have been doing a lot of really cool speed drills or brickwork drills or bucket feeding or like pros and cons of direct versus indirect reward. You know, like a lot of the things that we see people talking about on Facebook or WhatsApp, we want this Skillshare time frame to be a place where people feel empowered to either come and ask questions or come and teach something or potentially provide like a reading or a podcast suggestion that everyone comes and discusses. So there's kind of a bunch of different formats and a bunch of different ways it can go. And we really want to make it clear that if you sign up to host, you don't have to feel confident teaching the thing that you're doing. But if you're, you know, so say if I wanted to host a Skillshare on chronic wasting disease, I might choose a paper or two that we could all read about the topic. And then I would come with kind of discussion questions. And if nobody who's got direct experience with chronic wasting disease shows up to the call, we can still kind of like discuss what we think we learned and what we think we could see as possible solutions or directions. But it's not that I am coming necessarily with all of those answers. So again, we just want everyone to feel really empowered with this. And a huge part of why we're doing this is because we just keep noticing over and over that in our meetings and in our chats and in our calls, we have so much expertise in these groups that is so far beyond what me and Rachel and Heather can offer. And we want everyone to just feel like they can collaborate and like share collaboratively or evenly. And it's not just like us dictating down to the rest of you all, because so many of you have as much experience as us, more experience than us, or just different experience than us. And we just, yeah, we really want that to be kind of the format going forward. This doesn't change currently the format of like the group calls or some of those other sorts of things. Those are still going to be more structured, where you bring your training videos and we talk about those, and it'll still be a little bit more directed in that way. But as you all know, who, if you do come to those calls, if you're part of Patreon and that's something that you joined, those are still pretty collaborative as well. But this is, it's just a different format. And it's also one of the other, I guess, one of the other methods or options, flavors of Skillshare that I haven't talked about yet, that I'm really excited about, is the opportunity to, you could sign up and say, hey, I'm presenting at TWS in October. Can I sign up for the September Skillshare and give my talk and give like a practice talk and get feedback on your slides and get feedback on your flow and your delivery and those sorts of things. And that's another big thing that my lab does as well. And it's really cool to have that opportunity within my lab as well, because we've got some people who pick apart, you know, hey, I think you need to spend more time on the difference between SNPs and, you know, whatever, for, you know, get really nitty gritty about science. And then someone else is like, hey, I noticed that your color scheme actually changes halfway through the presentation. And it's so nice to have everyone looking at it. So again, there's a ton of different things, and I'm sure there are options that I haven't even thought of yet that are going to be useful for these Skillshares. So that's the main announcement going forward. I don't know if we've got anyone signed up for and claimed for the August calls. So what we're going to start with for now is, if you are interested in hosting a Skillshare, please, please, please do, because again, a huge part of this is like, this is meant to be collaborative. We want as many of you presenting and sharing, and again, also just coming and saying, hey, I actually understand nothing about how temperature affects odor movement. Can we just talk about that for an hour? And that could be it. That could be you signing up to host. But also part of this is because we're all really overworked. And the more of you signing up to host and run things, the easier for the rest of us. And again, like, we all benefit from it. So if anyone has any ideas for what they would like to do, and if September doesn't work, you know, October, just going forward, for now, how we're organizing this is just email me. Email and say, hey, I think I want to take, you know, I saw that October 7th is open. I'll take, oh, October 7th is a date that's stuck in my head for the wrong reason. Whatever date, whatever time is open, I would love to talk about this thing or come with a question about this, and then I will update the calendar and republish that as those come in. So I think that's it, as far as like the announcement and how this is going to go going forward. Does anyone have, what are the questions, clarifications, suggestions that everyone has at this point?
Yeah, so
Well,
for our, oh, go ahead, Sonia.
no, I was just gonna say I really love this idea. Um, and I love that you guys have incorporated the idea of just like open discussion um about like whatever. Because I noticed in the past, like on the coaching calls, sometimes we all start getting in a big discussion and then we're like, we got to hurry
Right.
up and watch these videos. And it's those discussions where I've learned so much. So I'm super
Yeah.
excited about this.
Exactly. I think that is like that was one of the other places where this came up. It's like, oh my God, I so want to just get to spend an hour. Like we're having such a good discussion, but also we've got someone else who like it's their time for their videos. Like we have to go on to these videos. And this lets us have time for that. So yeah, exactly. What were you gonna say, Maddie?
It was probably too technical of a question. I guess we're do we have like a central database for the Conservation Dog Alliance for like contact, or like that would be the Facebook group and the WhatsApp for people to contact? Yeah, I guess or those are our go-tos then, right?
Yeah, for now, I think ultimately the Conservation Dog Alliance is going to end up needing to switch over to something a bit more what's the word, differentiated, like Slack or Discord, where we can have like a central place and then channels, because we've been talking about like we should have an Africa channel, an Africa subgroup, a Europe subgroup, a mammal subgroup, a bat subgroup, and like something like Slack or Discord would allow us to then have all of those channels, and then you can just tap into whichever one you want. We don't have it set up yet. I think we're probably going to go with Slack, just because that seems to be what that the Conservation Dog Alliance founding members have already started communicating on Slack, so we can just then make a locked founding member channel and then let everyone else join the other ones. But yeah, ultimately, I think that is something. If we had more of a developer on the team, I think we could also like foresee having something like that within the Conservation Dog Alliance website, where there's like you log in and then you get into like member forums. But we don't have anyone who's that good at building websites, because Kyoko and I have built the website between the two of us, and it's good, but we are not like up to snuff for coding something that functions as well as like Reddit on the back end, or like anyone who remembers Yahoo groups. But yeah, I'm just, oh my God, I'm so excited about the Conservation Dog Alliance. It's going to be so cool, everyone. Like some of the, like the knowledge sharing and like the collaboration and community building that is going to be able to come out of this is going to be really sick. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I didn't know you guys had already built a website.
Yeah, we haven't like so basically we're like officially publicly announcing it on Monday. So you all just kind of get sneak peeks of these things because I had to warn you that like the Facebook group name was going to change and those sorts of things. And then it should be open for registration on Friday of next week. Uh, so we're doing like a soft launch, and then we're still we decided on this date like 2 months ago, and we were like, well, I'll do better if we've got a deadline. And then, of course, now, like a week and a half before the deadline, we're starting to be like, oh, shit, we've got a lot to do. Yeah, I guess so. With that in mind, does anyone have any? That's kind of the announcement phase. Does anyone have any topics, anything that's been on their mind that we could dive into and discuss? We can just continue grilling Heather about distraction camp, but she sounds very tired. Sonia, do you have any goals for that seminar that you're going to with gosh, who Mary is running it, right?
Right. Yeah, it's so sweet that you tagged me for that spot. I had actually signed up for it, I think like in January or whenever it like she first opened it up. Um, no, I don't have anything specific. I did do a 2-day clinic a few weeks ago, again through Sardis. That was a HRD clinic. And got to like introduce him to Shoreline, like water search. And that was really, really fun. Like that was really, I was like, oh my God, I totally want to do this. So, yeah. And then the only other thing I have going on is that we've added in a bark alert, because I was doing nose to source and I was getting some feedback like, well, how do you know if he's actually giving you an indication or if he's just sniffing something? And I went up and trained with another team, and they did a lot of hides that were like in dense bushes. And I realized, oh, I can't really tell what he's doing. Like, I don't know, like, is he crittering? Is he a nose on source? Like, is he look like, I don't know, like I could only see his butt or not even see him at all. And so, yeah, unfortunately he likes to bark a lot. So it's been really easy to add in the barking, and he seems to have gotten it really quickly. So that's what's going on with us. But I figure with Mary, I'm just there to do attempt to do whatever I'm asked to do.
Yeah, I've never actually gotten to meet her in person, but I've kind of followed her online for a little while because she dabbles or has in the past dabbled in conservation. So she's a co-author on at least one really cool desert tortoise paper that was looking at detection distance. And when I, every so often I go into those like detection distance and sensitivity and specificity rabbit holes, and like her name comes up on some of those. But yeah, it doesn't seem like she does conservation anymore. So I've never asked why. I'm sure it's just that there's no money in conservation, so why stay? But yeah, she seems like a really, really cool trainer. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for thinking of me.
Yeah. It's like, wait, Colorado. I know someone in Colorado who needs a seminar.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just like, I'm really curious to hear like Heather's, I know I missed a little bit of the first of it, about her experience. Cause I had actually signed up for that distraction camp and then wasn't able to go because some other things came up. But, yeah. I'm sorry.
It sounds like you both are having very different experiences of watching people get feedback on alerts or like watching people work through alerts.
Me?
Well, yeah, because you were just saying that like everyone is calling alerts so early and it's so subtle and like.
I mean, I think there are different times when I think I look presentable enough. Let's see. I think we keep saying like this is training. So like if your dog can get closer to source, then see if they do, versus like in a trial, then they would like, because of how diffuse essential oils are, like the judges can call it, or like you can call it much farther away from source. So that I've learned that dogs tend to like end up learning how to fringe alert in nose work trials and things. So in training, you want to set them up to get as close as possible to source because you know where the hides are. The first 2 days, or the last 2 days, so Tuesday and Wednesday, we actually did a bunch of facilitated blinds. So that was good, but also stressed out. I mean, I'm used to that because that's what we do at work every day, but also the nosework people, I guess, were more pressured, because then you really only do it in like, I guess, classes, but also the trial setting. So yeah, I don't know. I think it also depends on the group that you're with, kind of impacts the vibe of the seminar. I went to, because I was at a project in Illinois that was only 4 hours from Iowa last year. I was like, this is probably the closest I will be to canine census in a while. So I went to one of the 3-day Friday, Saturday, Sunday seminars last year on systematic searching. And it was only like 2 months after having Scotty. So we did a lot of like brick wall work and just like training how to like search systematically, but how that also can be like step one of a systematic search of teaching your dog how to like search a vehicle. So you like start by detailing on a wall, and then you can take that to a vehicle. And so it's like multifaceted systematic searching. And I found that one to be super, super helpful. I also, like I said, the group of people I was with was primarily human remains and search and rescue people. I don't know if it was because they were just more interested in the conservation stuff and asked me like questions that I'm not getting this time around. Like people asked me and then kind of were just like, and I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, I guess people don't care about what we do as much as the other people, but it's okay. Nose work is their thing, but maybe that's kind of why the vibe, but yeah. That's just been my experience, but I think the dogs are still, yeah, learning stuff, and it's helpful to have the instructors give you feedback in real time because it is hard to get that training elsewhere. But yeah, it's a lot of, I mean, and especially though, like for a lot of how we're setting hides, like we did today's whole thing was like watching how they think through hide placement to teach what you're teaching, which is super
That's
helpful.
cool.
Hell yeah.
But then also throughout the whole week, like it's been good for the nosework people that they've had bat and bird carcasses as additional distractions. But like, I guess, yeah, my dogs are still working through essential oil, and Ellie technically was on that at the very beginning anyway. But I don't know, I guess week 2 or distraction camp 2 is less focused on like specific distractions versus like week 1 is like, yeah, I guess more of what I had in mind for it, but I guess they don't work odor as much during week 1 stuff or part whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the search and rescue people.
I think they were interested that it's not like we get paid to do it, and they were like coming from different parts of the country, and I've gathered that depending on your area, it can be sometimes like really, I don't know, political or cliquey. And so like they were talking about how they weren't getting calls, and like they're like, well, we might as well not do this anymore. And so they were like, I'm gonna tell my friend about this conservation dog stuff. So I think it was just like they had never heard about it and were fascinated that you could do it with your dog. And yeah, it's similar enough.
Well, and it's that you have a goal that's not just to win. It's not just like to be the best of the group. It's like there's like a purpose, right? There's a bigger picture, or I mean, obviously we all want to be good with our dogs, but you know what I mean? Like, but then in the sport, it's a sport. It's like being the best, right? Or having a higher score or whatever.
And it's also, yeah, it's also not to discredit any of the dogs that are there, but it is because I did ask the question of like in nose work, why are less people doing a trained final response? And Robin's response was that, I mean, it's primarily pet dogs, and like that would be an extra layer that people would have to be teaching as well. And that added time crunch thing of like waiting for the alert adds time too. So yeah, I think it's just 2 different tracks. Like I relate more obviously to what Robin does with hers, but I mean the main dogs she's been working right now have been like narcotics and gun shell casing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually surprised when Maddie and Emma and I all went to that detection dog trial outside of Portland, and they like that was mostly HRD and drug, right?
I don't know what they were searching for actually.
Yeah, it was funny. I think we all, and it was probably partially because there was the 3 of us too, so it was like the 3 conservation girls like off on in our corner, but like we did not cross contaminate much. And I think so, and particularly when when you go to a detection dog trial, there's a little bit of like my dog and my there's a little bit of that vibe going on at times. But not as bad as you would think. Like I would definitely go again. It could have been a lot worse in that. I was worried it was going to be a lot worse. But yeah, it is kind of funny how like I feel like sometimes I meet other canine people or nose work people, and like the energy of the group is just totally immediately like, whoa, what is that? Like, tell me now. Da, 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 da. And sometimes they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. So you know, like let's talk about like the time, you know, times or like box smashing or whatever, and they're just like back into their own bucket. It's totally fine. I'm sure we do the same thing sometimes. We're like, oh cool, yeah, you train bomb dogs, whatever. Talk about poop.
Well, I don't know if it's always like understood that conservation dog handlers are doing all the training for their dogs too. And that's not always the case for other industries. So like they might just be like, oh, that's your source. Okay. Because they might not really like do a whole lot of training of that dog. Like they're handed a program dog and they might have training background, but they're handed a program dog and said, this is how I want you to handle the dog. And so they don't have a whole lot of buy-in, so maybe they don't understand how much buy-in we have to our own dog's training, and so they're kind of just like, oh, okay, that's what you look for, I guess. You're on the end of the leash while the dog is looking for that.
Yeah, that's true. I think we have a lot of, I mean, I think HRD and like SAR is probably similar, like as far as the passion component, partially because they're unpaid, even they're paid worse than we are. But
Per hour. Yeah.
yeah.
Because they got to go out way, way far and search
Well,
way,
they're
way
just
long.
not paid in most cases.
Oh,
Like they're
okay.
just
Yeah.
volunteer. Like most SAR groups are just straight up volunteer. But like I was looking at just for shits and giggles, I was looking at TSA dog handler jobs in Portland just to like see how much money I could be making if I did that instead of a PhD. And I would be handed a program dog and I'd have to work in PDX, but it was like 60K. And it was like, oh, so like also just like if I for some reason ended up handling a TSA dog for a year because I needed to make that sort of money, I would probably get nerdy about it and I would get into the containers and I would get into the environmental side of it. Like I would enjoy parts of it, but there's no way that I would get to the same point of like passion as I am with the conservation side of things. And like I think your point, Maddie, is really good that there's probably a lot of people who are like, you know, drug dog handlers were like the drug itself and like the search and like the concept of like exactly like all of the other components aren't as much like their jam versus for us, like I think for us, it kind of has to be. And I don't know, I think a lot of us just enjoy it in that side of it, and enjoy thinking about like the target species behavior and the different environments. And like, we're like, because we're interested in our target species and we're interested in learning about them versus like, they're more like, get the drugs and get the arrest.
Also, like if I wasn't allowed to like train the dog I was handling, I would have a whole lot less interest in like whatever I was doing. Like,
yeah, that is the downside of
just,
even thinking about like, oh man, I could like kind of imagine getting into TSA stuff and enjoying
just
like, oh my gosh, teaching the dogs how to like search suitcases that are moving by on a conveyor belt. Like, oh, that's such great training, but like I wouldn't get to be doing the training. I would just be like, yeah,
right,
I would just be Uber.
Yeah,
well, unless
right.
we somehow figured out how to become the trainer.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
You know,
and that just wasn't what that job posting was.
Right. Yeah, that's
right.
A funny little story. My son is trying to figure out what to do with his life, and he's been wanting to go talk about military jobs. And I'm like, I don't think that's the job for you. But he's like, well, he's 17. He's like, they won't tell me anything unless a parent goes, will you go with me to talk to a recruiter? And I said, sure. So I went in and sat there and he asked his questions, and he was asked about the Army, and they were like, you have to take this intelligence test. And then based on that, you would qualify for certain jobs, whatever. And then he had this big packet of like all the different jobs in the Army. Right. And so as my son was talking to them, I was flipping through it and I saw a military canine trainer, and I was like, oh, that's the job you should do. You should be a military canine trainer. Of course, my son has no interest in that whatsoever, right? And the recruiter was like, oh, whoa. I got to tell you that's the hardest position to get in the entire Army. And I was like, really? And he's like, from what I've been told, that is the hardest job to get. And he's like, but man, those guys seem to love their jobs. Anyway, I just thought that was a really funny story. I was like, yeah, darn, it's too bad. It's too late for me to join the Army. Anyway.
back when I first heard about conservation dogs and was like starting to try to figure out how to get into this field, one of the like detours that I considered trying was like, okay, can I get experience handling military or police dogs, or like can I maybe I want to work with working dogs, like maybe that's the answer, because I was in behavior modification at the time and like I loved that, but it's also hard. Like I didn't want to do it forever. And I had the same conversation with like I think I kind of knew I was already like 24 at the time. I was like, I'm not going through basic right now. Like I'm a 24-year-old woman with a liberal arts degree. Like I'm not cut out for this anymore. Like but even police, you know, it was the same thing. And they're like, you've got to go through the police academy, you've got to like get top everything, and then like you've got to navigate the politics, and like usually you have to work as a beat cop for like a couple of years before you like earn the chance to maybe get into one of those things. And I was just, you know, and they were like, we really wouldn't recommend signing up for this job if you only want to do it for the canine side. Okay, thank you for being honest. Good day to you. Like, yeah, that is correct. I do not want to go through the police academy and then accidentally end up being like I don't know, a school safety officer for the rest of my life.
I had a question just kind of based off something you had brought up, Heather, about the fringing on alerts. I was kind of like noodling on this thought the other day, maybe a little too existentially, but like, you know, we don't actually know where odor goes entirely. Like we try our best to guess, and like we study the way it moves and try, but you know, there's this like gray area of like, is our dog fringing, or are we assuming they're fringing because we know where the hide is and they're actually at the highest concentration of odor? And I think that's a really interesting like play between the two, because we want them to go to source as much as we can. We always want to encourage go to source, go to source, go to source. But then something could be getting caught in an eddy and we could be missing that. And then we could be correcting our dogs that, hey, no, actually, I need you to keep going to source. And they're like, okay, this isn't it. And then they maybe become more visual, or they don't trust themselves as much and then start deferring to our guidance because we're telling them, no, you're not an odor. So I would love if one of our conversations would tease that apart of where, you know, what are we sometimes willing to give up in order to be like, okay, just trust the dog, trust your training, because it's like you've done all this prep work, and if the dog is saying this is the strongest source of odor or strongest place odor is present, then we just have to trust them and find out where it's coming from ourselves. Or is that very much like source dependent? Like if we're looking for something that's so small, yeah, there's more pickiness that we need to have in order to be like, well, I literally can't find it unless your nose is 2 centimeters away from it. So I need you to like really get to it, versus like, this scat is so smelly that the odor is probably all over the freaking place and it got caught under this leaf litter pile. And so it's strongest there. And maybe I do pay you at that because you've indicated on it and we trust our training. And yeah, so I don't know where that push and pull would be for you guys, but probably a longer discussion at another time. But I would love for that to be a discussion that we have here soon.
Put it on the SkillShare. Next one. We can also talk about it now. We still got 15 minutes.
I mean, I
Heather,
feel
you-
like it's so.
yeah, you jump in first. I already made notes for myself. It's like, I've got
I mean, I
thoughts.
feel like what I've been learning, because I am using this time here to be teaching Scotty different odor dynamics. Like we have Stacy has like that smoke pen that she uses to like see how odor is moving. And so we're trying to set up like odor pools or things that are going to be eddying, so that in training, we're able to help the dog more, like be more handler, or like step in as a handler to help the dog figure out how to solve this problem, so that they learn from that experience. Like, oh, okay, I have to go out of odor actually to get to a stronger source of odor. So that's one thing. And then I think just for our purposes specifically, like we want them to be able, like, yes, this may have a higher concentration of odor, but like if I can't get to wherever it actually is, then I actually still can't find our target that we're trying to collect. So I think that's why we focus on so much like on source. Like I've noticed, yeah, this whole time, if it's a new skill, like the boxes and stuff, I was doing click for sniff because he didn't do that, but I was trying to wait him out to like make sure he committed before yeah, before giving it and then just like seeing it from the nosework people like so much differently. But anyway, yeah, go ahead, Kayla. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think kind of basically what you've said, like for us, we get this quite a bit in the field up here. And I think maybe more so than I remember getting on the wind farm, partially maybe because the odor dynamics are a little simpler. But actually, no, not really, because like basically my current policy is like my dogs are on a variable. I always get variable and intermittent schedules of reinforcement confused. They're on one of those. I took the exam a long time ago. And my dogs get rewarded for probably like 80 to 90% of their alerts. And what I currently do is if a scat is not collectible, I don't reinforce. And that includes scat, like I kind of call them unconfirmed alerts, where I don't know, it could be fringing, it could be pooling, it could be sometimes it's 3 pieces of hair held together by a speck of fecal matter and I just can't see it. Sometimes I can see it and I say, you know what, that's a terrible move. And you are so right, but we are going to go find another one. And like, I think building that expectation into dogs kind of helps with the like in the field resilience for these sorts of things. Because yeah, as Heather said, like the reality is we do need them to find the physical thing because just alerting to presence is not generally, for at least for any of the jobs that we have had so far, that's not adequate. It does mean that there are probably times where we are asking them to leave a high concentration of odor and go to something that is not as high. Hypothetically, source should still be higher than even a pool. Like, I'm sure there are cases like odor dynamics wise that could be not what's happening, but like it. And I guess with that then, so, you know, of course there's always exceptions, but like generally that should be the case. We do see, like, I see my dogs queuing in visually as well, and I don't think that's bad. I've actually, it's been kind of funny. Occasionally we'll see Barley, like he'll see a bear scat up the road and he'll like take it up a little bit and be like, I'm gonna go check it out. And then he drops his nose, he sniffs it, and you know, and then like keeps going, you know, like it's good. We do the same thing and he's still using all of his tools. So like, obviously there is a point at which, and I think early on, you don't want them relying on visual aids and you don't want that to become a crutch. You don't want that to become the main thing they do. But like, I've yet to see a dog that was in any way field ready at all in like any other aspects that's still overly visual because they're just not visual creatures that way. Like the dogs that I've seen that are relying too much on their eyesight also have like 75 other things that they're not ready on. And then the last note I had was just, which you kind of hinted at, Maddie, when you were asking the question, was like volatility. Like I think my guess would be that really, really volatile target odors, this is going to be more of a problem than what we work on. I know that this is a big problem for plant detection dogs, but I just haven't, you know, I think of anyone on this call, I might have the most plant experience, and I am still, you know, I'd consider myself very, very green in that department. Forgive me, thank you, Rachel. And you know, I know we ran into this with plants where like, because they've potentially been in that environment for months or years even, like there is just like everything kind of smells like that thing. And so sometimes we didn't get nose to source, and sometimes the dogs really struggled to commit. And that's where I think like your judgment can kind of come in. And depending on the dog and depending on your relationship, and like there were times where like I remember once watching Amy Hurt handle Lily, and we had come upon a patch of Lespedeza, and there was like probably 100 plants in this patch, and poor Lily is just like running in circles, like trying to find the highest concentration of odor, and she just couldn't commit. And at some point, Amy was just like, Lily, like called her name and just threw the ball. It was just like, stop, take the reward, and like that's a good dog that like couldn't commit. But we can do the same thing in less extreme cases as well. If like, if Barley alerts to a tree that is 2 meters downwind of a scat on a really windy day, and everything is just kind of eddying in there, generally I will ask him to source again, but there have been at least a couple cases so far this summer. One where I asked him to source again, and I had to ask him multiple times, and he had a really, really hard time. And I realized, like, as I was partially through that, I was like, oh, no, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, the odor dynamics here are really, really weird. And I just need to pay him because he got me to within a couple meters. I saw it with my eyeballs. He knows how to source. If he could source it here, he would be. So I just need to pay him and not like teach him some weird like over reliance on the handler. So like there's always the need to like break and meld some of these rules depending on like the dog's experience, how much experience they have, not just the type they have, and like whatever's going on. Because like generally if he alerts to a tree and I can see a scat, I say, show me. And he'll kind of like, oh, right, and like kind of like you can almost see that he got like excited and like zoned out and just alerted. And then like, we're like, oh, right, and then he goes and gets it, and great, okay, we'll give him the ball again. But if that doesn't go well, then like, okay, we probably shouldn't keep asking. It needs mushy. Does that help at all? You're muted.
Yeah, that's great.
So, well, does anyone have any other questions? Particularly, I know we had a bunch of people kind of come in right as I was wrapping up the explanation of the Skillshare. I recorded this meeting and I'll get it up onto YouTube. And I might even just crop the explanation of the Skillshare bit, record that, put that up on YouTube. No, we'll just do the whole thing because this part was really interesting too. But so you can catch up on that there. But if you have any like direct specific questions, now would also be a great time to ask. Okay. I guess for the sake of consistency, I'm going to just pull up the announcement for when our next Skillshare is and put out a call. And does anyone want to submit a topic or suggestion or offer to host an upcoming Skillshare once I tell you when they are? Okay, so August, we have one on August 1st at 8 o'clock Eastern. And then we have one August 14th at 11 a.m. Eastern. So the 8 o'clock Eastern is this time, and 11 a.m. Eastern is quite early if you're on the West Coast. Anyone?
And this, I struggle as always to find my Zoom meetings and find where they're posted, and I get confused. Like, wait, is the meetup, is that part of the group, or is that part of Patreon, or is that part, is there a way that we can like the day of or an hour before or whatever, post the link for the meetings in the Facebook group?
Yeah, I think what we need to try to figure out how to do, and maybe Zoom is a platform we need to leave because Zoom doesn't seem to do a good job of this, is just have a single link that is like conservationdogalliance.zoom.org, and it's just the same one no matter what we're doing, and then we can all just save that. And I think we're going to try to figure something like that out. And what I can do on these, so these are kind of made to hopefully answer those questions for you, Sonia, is like we've got the color coded who's invited.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, you are not the only one with this question. Like, let's be very clear about that. You are not the only one who's confused about this, because we have too many different things. We've got so many different like ways you can join and what that gives you access to.
Checking emails, checking WhatsApp, checking the Facebook. Like, I'm like, wow, where did I see it? Where did I see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sonia, as of now, do you have a Gmail, Sonia?
I do.
If your Gmail is the one that's registered with Canine Conservationist, then you should receive okay. So, email me your Gmail if you want to have that be replace it, or replace your Gmail in your student thing or your Patreon thing. And I will every month I go through, and any new people in either of those groups I add to a Google group, and then those people get invites for Google calendars. And
Okay.
those have the links in them too.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and those help a lot. And yeah.
But if we did have one Zoom, which the old SAR group I was with had that. And so every week I could just click on it and I know I always got to the meeting. And so it was really convenient.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to synthesize all the things here, it looks like.
We're moving towards being a more professional situation here.
I've always been an advocate for getting off of Facebook as the main source.
I know.
Facebook drives me nuts.
It's such a bad platform for sharing this sort of information. It's just, yes, I agree.
But now the time has come.
Yeah. Facebook is definitely dying. So yeah. Okay. One more call for SkillShares. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to start emailing people and volunteering them for August. So yeah, just know that.
I will try to do one in beginning of September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there one this morning?
No, it was today. And then the other one, I did one specifically. I didn't invite everyone to it, but we did one July 3rd that was specifically for Africa and Europe, to kind of get them on board. And I think we had some of our Asian students in it as well, to kind of get them up to date. And kind of, we had a little bit of a discussion about, like, do we want to keep this regional, or do we want to make it time zone dependent, or like, do we want to keep it open to everyone? And we decided to have it open to everyone, but I wanted to like give them the decision to like keep it more regional, if they wanted. So, okay, well, Maddie, you can just let me know. I assume you probably want the later one, right? Just let me know.
Let's see yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah, just let me know. And yeah, particularly, I know that I will not be at either of the August ones, so we definitely need people to be signing up and coming up with things. I also have topics that if nobody signs up, I can just email a list of topics to whoever can make it, and then you guys can take it from there. But we still, we'll get in the swing of it eventually.
Do we have a Google sheet where people can sign up and we can have those potential topics listed as like, you could grab one of these topics?
We don't, but we should. Yeah. Would you be willing to throw that together?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hopefully that's like a 3-minute task.
Yeah. Just send me, if you already have some topics in line, just send them to me. Or you could put them in the sheet and when I invite you to them.
Yeah, I'll just put them in the sheet when you invite me.
Great. Awesome.
And we can start with a super ugly like list, and then ultimately I'm sure we'll end up like differentiating it into like categories and types and whatever, but we can just start. I'm a big proponent of starting with whatever we start with and then making it more professional from there. And I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, so if you want to start more professional, go for it. But
all right, cool beans.
All right, well, we are at the hour. We did start a little late, so if anyone's got anything that they want to throw, raise their hand for, then you've still got time, but otherwise we'll wrap it up. Okay, well, I'm like genuinely so excited about, like, I think the Skillshare format is going to be really good for everyone. And like, every time I watch the WhatsApp group popping off with like things that I'm just like, I honestly don't even know a lot of what y'all are talking about. I'm like, yes, we're gonna all learn so much from each other. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. And yeah, so that next meeting, the next Skillshare is August 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll see some of you there, hopefully. Bye.
Cool. Thanks, Kayla.